Hello and welcome to my Ninja Turtles channel. I'm very happy to be joined by Chris Fawcett, the author, the creator behind the Rad Plastic Ninja Turtles book. It's about 400 pages and it covers a ton of Ninja Turtles toys. Pretty much everything from the 80s and 90s is covered, from concept sketch to design, prototypes, all the way to the marketing, the card back, to the final product you see on the shelf. Welcome, Chris Fawcett.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, this is so cool. I'm very happy to finally speak to you. Like I just told you, I got the first printing of the book, and you've had three printings of the book. It's 400 pages. You've probably sold thousands of copies of this thing. Is that right?
I think I'm probably pushing about not quite 4,000 so far, and that'll probably be the last printing, the third printing. It's really slowed down a lot. So, if any of your listeners want one, now'd be the time to get in. I got plenty left. There's no worries, but definitely will probably be my last printing.
Oh, well, I wanted to tell everyone to go to radplastic.com. There's a Father's Day sale going on right now, 20% off, limited supplies. When they're gone, they're gone. This is the third and probably final printing. Chris is sick of talking about this book. He's been talking about it for 3 years. He's ready to move on.
No,
Um,
I always like talking about toys all the time. I can do it every day.
Oh, nice. Well, yeah, Rad Plastic. I highly recommend it to everyone listening. And you've described the book. It's educational, it's historical. Essentially, you catalog how the toys used to be created back in the 80s and 90s. They would come up with a concept design, they would sketch, then they would mold it out of clay, and they would get a prototype. And it's like a real historical thing. It's like a lost art form almost. I know a lot of this stuff is done on computers now. Do you feel something has been lost moving over to computers? Is there an art form that's been lost?
Well, there is certain, anytime you have a change in technology like that, there's always some things you lose and always some things you gain, I think. What we've lost from a collector standpoint, of course, what we lost is these artifacts. They don't really exist anymore. Yeah, they, often will 3D print sculpting is now done in the computer, and they'll 3D print those and paint them up, especially for things like Toy Fair, where they want to show real physical product to the various buyers from the toy departments, the retailers. But all these different stages we've lost. We don't have an original sculpt anymore, and so there's a little bit of that artistry. But that said, there are things you can do in the computer, such as really, really fast and rapid changes. So when you have a new idea for something, you can model it very quickly and see if it works or not. So in some ways, maybe the old-fashioned way might have been a little bit less creative freedom, I guess you would say, from the sculptor side. So the sculptors can really kind of try things out so much easier and in a so much more efficient way nowadays. So that could lead to better designs. Of course, it could also lead to some really bad choices, I suppose, if you're trying out really poor things that don't work. But so there's always things to be gained and lost when any kind of technology shift happens in an
Yeah.
industry like this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and creative people are they're going to find a way to be creative, whether they have CAD or whether they're drawing on paper or doing it in a modern way or an old-fashioned way. And how would you
exactly.
describe the book? I know you've described the book. It's essentially just like the history of how the toys were created. What's your short like elevator pitch for the book? How do you describe it in a sentence or two?
Yeah, I always say it's an art and history book. So it really does celebrate the artistry behind toy creation. A lot of people, when they see me post about it or see somebody else post about it, the first question they ask is, "Well, does it have every picture of every toy and all the accessories?" It's like, this is not a guidebook. That's not the point of it. And I didn't try to be a guidebook. And
Hmm.
there are other people, websites, and other people doing books that are guidebooks. But I didn't really want to just do something to show you, oh, I got this figure and I need to make sure I have all the accessories. What are they? That wasn't my point. Is was not to assist people in collecting. Those things are great. Not what I wanted to do though. So what I really wanted to do was tell about the history and the artists and the artistry, and show all kinds of things about the production process and how this is all done to really celebrate that the people making these things really are artists. And sometimes that gets a little bit lost in society because they're just toys. But there really is a fantastic artistry behind this, even from the sculpting to even just the packaging to the concept designs, everything like that. So I wanted to really highlight that. So it's an art and history book, is how I pitch it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot more not that there's anything wrong with just like a toy encyclopedia, but that's just kind of a list of toys. And your book really captures the narrative of how a toy is created. It tells a story about how It starts with the concept design, and there's a bunch of decisions made, and then it's molded out of clay, and there's more changes made, and you see the progression of how the toys came to be, and it's a lot more interesting than just an encyclopedia.
Yeah,
Have you?
and both those kind of books have their place, but I knew I wasn't the person to write the encyclopedia type book. I will give a plug. I think Pixel Dan's coming out with one soon, and I'll be picking that up. And any collector that's into the vintage line, probably should pick that one up too. But it'll be a companion to my book. They'll go together really great and give you completely different perspectives on your collecting and Ninja Turtle toys.
Yeah, it's different than a checklist. I agree. There's value in both of them. And while you're talking about companion books, have you seen the Varner Turtle sketchbook?
Yeah, I've got that one too. I kind of I wouldn't say I was the impetus for that, but when I first contacted Varner for my book, they had most of their stuff all packed away, and they had all these sketches that they found were in a garage, and they told me, fortunately, that garage had some roof leaks, and just so happened this one corner stayed dry. They're very fortunate that all these drawings still existed, and they weren't just a waterlogged mess. But after I had visited and took some pictures for my book, they started digging around some more and found all these, and decided to do their own book, which is the sketchbook, which is really fantastic as well. And again, I've got some sketches in mind, but I focus more on the 3D stuff and packaging than concepts.
Hmm.
So to have their book is probably 200, 300 pages, I think. To have that concept book as well out there is just really great to have all this history, preserved in these book forms that people can enjoy and will, live on forever.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have both of the books, and I'll probably be getting the other book you mentioned, the encyclopedia list. I'll probably be getting that one too.
Yeah.
There's a ton of unreleased figures in the Ninja Turtles book, Rad Plastic. There's unreleased Star Wars Turtles figures, Doctor Who, Indiana Jones. Is there a favorite unreleased toy that you have or that you'd like to see? Is there a particular toy that you'd like to see?
Well, I guess there's kind of two categories of unreleased stuff. There's the ones like most of what you mentioned, which is just design concepts, pitches that never went anywhere further than that,
Hmm.
never further than a sketch on a piece of paper. And then there are the unreleased toys that went all the way, often through sculpting into hard copies, maybe got taken to Toy Fair or shopped around and for whatever reason were canceled. Um, I like both sets. I kind of gravitate towards the ones that made it really far in the process because the
Hmm.
things to potentially collect there are more interesting. My personal favorite is the Spellcaster Splinter, just sort of like a mashup of Gandalf and Splinter,
Hmm.
which I've been a Lord of the Rings fan since like grade school. And so and that figure is one of the most dynamic sculpts. I mean, the Ninja Turtle sculpts are very dynamic to begin with, but that one's just over the top dynamic with this windswept beard and his poses and everything. So that's probably my favorite of the unreleased that went past the sketch. I have several favorites of the concept pieces. Some of the ones by Dan Berger, I really love. There's uh, a like a one that's a beaver with a chainsaw for a hand.
Hmm.
I forget what his name is. It's really great. There's quite a few of those sketches that I think are really great. Mostly, I gravitate towards the ones that were other mutant animals
Mm.
versus unreleased turtle sculpts because I mean, pick an animal. They probably made a sketch for it at
Hmm.
some point back in the day.
Um, I mentioned earlier there's been three printings of the book. Is there any new material in this third printing? Is there like a new chapter or anything like that?
No, they're basically all the same, except for there was a couple pages in the first printing that I found out later were actually Toxic Crusaders that were mislabeled as Ninja Turtles, and I took those two pages out and just kind of expanded the pages around them. So there's really nothing substantially new. I guess the only thing in the second and third printing that isn't in the first one is there's an image of the pizza face sculpt that wasn't in the very first printing. But other than that, it's pretty much the same book, just other than some typos and those two pages that I wanted to take out because it was bad information.
Uh,
I found some of these things and it was in a box labeled TMNT, this, that. And I'm like, oh, this must be unreleased Ninja Turtles. And then later on, actually talking about the Varner sketchbook, later on, they turned up some sketches and like, here's the sketch for this. It's labeled Toxic Crusaders. Oh, okay. So the box was labeled wrong. The sketch is clearly right. This toy was not a Ninja Turtles toy. So I wanted to take that out to not further propagate misinformation.
Oh, that's okay. The book is 400 pages long. There's probably thousands of photos and thousands of facts in there. You did a lot more than just write the book. You took all the photos as well and kind of put the whole thing together.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there's a lot of what I call file photography in there, which is just, photos I found that were, circa 1990s
Hmm.
photos that designers had kept for 20 years and they were in a folder somewhere. So there's quite a few of those kind of photos in there, which I just obviously I didn't take those. They were taken 20 years ago and I scanned those. But yeah, most of the stuff that sort of looks like a glamour shot photo, like looks like really like, oh, this was taken in a light box, with a good camera and everything. Yeah, those pretty much I took almost all the ones in the book that you see there.
And the design of the book is great. Chance Sanderson designed the book.
Yeah, he just knocked it out of the park. I mean, I basically went in and said, I'm not a designer like that, but I've been in the toy industry myself and around designers my whole career. So
Hmm.
even though I can't produce that kind of like work, I have enough experience with it to know what good looks like and what great looks like when I see it. So I'm like, oh wow, that's fantastic. I never could have come up with that out of my head, but I know that's great and that's okay, and that one kind of sucks. But he just nailed it. I told him basically, the Ninja Turtles are fun. They're bright. I want the book to be cartoon like. I want it to be colorful, just like the line. About the only thing I can say I contributed was the little tabs on the top of the pages to let you know what year you're in. I was like, I want this here so you can look at the side when it's closed and pick right to a year and go to it. But yeah, he just really nailed it. That from that very basic instruction of I want it colorful and childlike and cartoon like, and he absolutely delivered. So it was great working with him.
Yeah, book looks really great. It's organized really well. The first few chapters are a little bit of setup and history, and then you just pretty much go year by year about which toys were created on the Ninja Turtles line, and it lays it out really nicely. Like I said, there's a really nice narrative, and I know you have a ton of other extra material, prototypes, tons of facts you probably didn't have room for. Are you planning on a second book at any point?
I've kicked it around. I don't know. I go back and forth. I like some points and times I'm like, I don't want to do it, and then I'll get a bee in my bonnet for 2 weeks and start gathering images and stuff. And so I don't know. I would say it's completely 50-50 right now. I don't certainly don't have enough material for another 400-page book.
Hmm.
So anything I did would be sort of an addendum, maybe a 200 page. There is absolutely other stuff. There's stuff that I couldn't fit into the book because I wanted to limit it to 400 pages. A lot of concept sketches, for example, I didn't want to focus on concept sketches because I wanted to really focus on the line itself.
Hmm.
So the only concept sketches I really have are, like you said, in those first couple chapters where I'm sort of explaining the process and explaining concept sketches. And then I have a lot of concept sketches for the figures that were actually released. But I don't hardly put any concept sketches in for things that never got past the paper sketch phase. So I've got a lot of that. The things we found since then, things I couldn't fit. But I don't know. Part of me is kicking it around and going, well, would it be better to just put this additional stuff on a website somewhere and have like an archive, like the Star Wars toy collecting has the Star Wars Collectors Archive, which is a fantastic page of this kind of material. If you're into Star Wars collecting, like maybe that's something would be easier or better to do,
Hmm.
or I don't know. I haven't really decided. So.
I would say the book was a big success. So whatever you have planned for the future, if you put out a second book, I'm sure lots of people would love to check it out. And the book was a global success. I know it's available worldwide. Have you heard from any of like the creators, anybody that you didn't talk to for the book? Have you heard from Eastman and Laird or anything like that?
Well, while I was in the process of making it, Kevin Eastman was at a convention here, and I told him I was doing it. And I'm sure he gets people telling him they're doing all kinds of stuff. So he's like, "Yeah, whatever." I'm thinking in his head. He didn't actually say that. He was very
Hmm.
nice about it. But then, I was able to get in touch with him and send him a copy of the book. I actually sent 4 or 5 copies that went to Mirage right when it came out, and so all those guys there at Mirage got one. So Kevin has had good things to say. Basically, seeing him post online occasionally. But then the one that surprised me was somebody had posted on a group on Facebook that Eastman happens to be in, because, or I'm sorry, Laird happens to be in, because you don't see him nearly as much. Kevin's all over the place.
Hmm.
You know, Laird is kind of a little bit more reclusive. And he just put a comment, great book. I'm like, yes.
Very
So, you know,
nice.
I'd gotten the kudos from Kevin, and it was nice to get that one little 2 sentence 2 word comment from Peter. Yeah, that was cool.
I think for Peter Laird, that's a very, very positive, long review for something he likes. So
Yeah,
that's definitely
yeah,
well earned.
exactly. I was just happy to know that he had seen it and looked through it, because I assumed he had gotten one, but I hadn't heard anything. So, and the other guys online from Mirage are all very positive. Dan Berger posts quite a bit, and I'm always going into his posts and sort of adding addendums. He'll post a image that Ryan Brown made, and I'll post in the thread a prototype of that figure or something. And he's always very complimentary of Rad Plastic too. So I appreciate him for that. And also the Shellbacks. I'm forgetting his
Steve
name right
Levine?
off the top. Steve Levine, yes, yeah, Steve Levine has also been very good and helpful and complimentary, and helped me get in touch with some people that were tough to get in touch with. So they've all been great.
Yeah, from all the interviews I've seen, they seem like a nice group of guys, and they really did something special creating those figures back in the '80s. They really pioneered a amazing toy line and a lot of cool stuff and a lot of history that you collected. When you were talking to all these people and checking out all their collections and all the old design sketches and old prototypes, were there any conflicting stories? Like two people claimed they created a toy, like two people claimed that they had created a figure or something like that?
There were definitely some things that were hard to piece together. Because I mean, sometimes, especially with the sculptors, sometimes somebody would sculpt something and then somebody else would pick it up and work on it. So
Hmm.
a lot of times these things were touched by several different people. So sometimes you get people saying, "Oh no, that was my figure. That was my figure." The truth is, they probably both worked on it.
Hmm.
But who gets the ultimate credit? Who knows? And then sometimes they got shipped off to somewhere else to do the molding, and then that guy was like, "Well, I don't remember. I think I sculpted this, but I know I molded it because here's the mold." And so you get some things confused, and so it wasn't so much about that stories were conflicting because of people remembering wrong or trying to take credit. It was more just like the dust of time had like covered these
Yeah.
facts over, and getting that dust all wiped off was the hard part, and trying to put the puzzle pieces together. It's kind of funny, like you do a book like this and all this research, and you actually end up probably having a better overview of what happened at Playmates and with all these contractors than any one single person that actually worked there did,
Yeah.
because you've talked to everybody, and this guy remembers that, and this guy remembers this piece, and this guy remembers this piece. Now you've got the whole story, but neither one of those three ever had the whole story, so it's kind of like you almost become the expert at the history of it, even more so than the people that lived it, because you have a more bird's eye view and a holistic view of all the information. It's a little bit of a strange place to sit.
Yeah, you've become the narrator. You've become the nucleus of the Playmates operation from 40 years ago. You've snuck in as the main center
Yeah.
guy. You're the hub of the wheel. Um,
Yeah, one thing that's been great, honestly, is being able to reconnect these people with friends they had 20, 30 years ago that they hadn't talked to in that much time. I
yeah,
mean,
that's
that's
nice.
been that's been really special for me, and I think for them. I mean, there are some people that, I mean, there are some stories about really some hardships in people's lives that were really radically helped by reconnecting with their old friends. And I don't want to get into them because they're personal stories, but just to be a part of that reconnection, to know that, like, oh, like, without this book and without doing this, and me and the other contributors on the book, really diving in deep, these people wouldn't have reconnected, and these relationships and lives maybe wouldn't have healed in the way they had. And that's almost one of the most special things about it. And there's a little Facebook messenger group I have of former people from this design studio or that design studio, where like every time I find a new one, I invite them in. Everyone's like, "Oh, hey, I haven't seen you in 20 years, and what's going on?" And it's kind of cool to see them all rekindle those friendships they had.
Yeah, that's really nice. I thought one of the most the sweetest parts of the book was the behind the scenes in the back. There's a bunch of pictures of you with all the people you interviewed. This isn't something you could do over the computer. You have to physically be in person, digging through boxes at their houses, in their storage units, and you had to travel around. This isn't something just sending an email. It's a lot more intimate. you're being welcomed into these people's houses, and I just thought that was a really special part of the book that you included all the buddy pictures at the end of all the people who helped you out.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the whole thing, honestly, because for me, that's, it's very personal. That's the memories, not only of, the three other guys and my wife who did all this traveling together to visit these people, but then, some of the people I met have become friends. I talk to, every couple of weeks to this day. And even the ones that I, just met them that one time, you know, um, they're great memories. A couple people have passed since I talked to them. And, I look at those pictures now and I kind of get choked up a little bit, um, that just feel really lucky to have talked to those people before they had passed. Uh, so yeah, that part's really special. I just wanted to. You're right. You have to go there in person. I mean, I got to haul a light box around. I got to take pictures of things. Like, most people don't have a light box in their basement and don't know how to frame and take a really nice picture. So I couldn't just say, take a picture, send it to me, I'll put it in my book. I wanted this to look really fantastic and professional. So I had to go, right, to be there physically and take the picture. So, but on top of that, just the relationships that you build with people and the friendships you make is really great.
Yeah, the book is really well done. It's very professional for being like a fan made independent project. It looks great. The amount of typos are negligible. I really didn't even notice any. Most people wouldn't notice any. And if we get an extra page with a Toxic Crusaders figure, that's fine with me. So, what do you think
Yeah.
makes the Ninja Turtles special and the toys special? What do you think really set it off back in the 80s and 90s for Turtle Mania? What makes them stand out?
Well, I think out of everybody I talked to, I think John Handy, who was the original designer hired by Playmates when the line started and they were trying to flesh it out, I think he nailed it in what the lightning in a bottle that they found with this line. And I quote him in the book, and I'll paraphrase here, but he basically said the Ninja Turtles, being teenagers is important because they allow children to more relate to them. They're not watching a show about adults like He-Man or Thundercats, or that are about adults doing brave and courageous things. They're watching a show about somebody that's like them. They're teenagers, they're kids.
Hmm.
And he said out of all the things that littler kids, grade school kids want and don't have, courage is one of the big ones. They have all these things happening in their lives. They have bullies at school. They have their teachers, being mean to them. They could have parents that are not great parents. And through this all, they have a feeling of helplessness, right? Like bully beat you up in the playground, and there's a feeling of helplessness. And so the one thing they want the most that they don't have is courage. And
Hmm.
to see a character in a cartoon that is relatively like their age, they're
Hmm.
kids still, having that courage, going out, fighting the bad guys,
Uh,
getting in all these dangerous situations and coming out of it gives them maybe the courage to go into school and, not be affected by that teacher that puts them down or walk away from that bully that is pushing them around. And so I think he really hit on it there. I think that is what caused it to go through the roof. They nailed that in the cartoon, and the toy line obviously was fantastically executed. That good execution always helps, but I think it's that narrative of like get, getting courage as a young person who has natural weaknesses in this world. I think is what really resonated.
wow. Yeah, I agree. That's nice for kids that they can see themselves in the heroes, and even though they're teenagers and they're learning how to be a teenager and growing up, that they can still be heroic and do the right thing, setting a good example and being a good role model and all that. That's a nice,
Exactly.
nice wholesome reason for the turtle's success. That's very nice. That's a
Yeah.
good explanation. I know you're a Star Wars fan and you've been in the toy industry for a long time. You have a background in engineering, and you've picked up on a lot of patterns and tropes that the Ninja Turtles have. Like they would make a toy with one leg being different. They would have like an asymmetrical leg. Are there any other patterns and stuff like that that you've noticed throughout the Ninja Turtle toy line?
Um, yeah, not really. I mean, yeah, I have noticed, and people have talked about like the one shoe and there's always one shoe and the other foot has no shoe. Like a lot of figures have a shoe on a foot and a barefoot on the other foot.
Hmm.
Um, so no, not really anything specific like that. I think they were just trying to be different and unique and original and give each figure some character. I think,
Yeah.
they probably hit on the one shoe thing. It's sort of I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing it sort of became like an inside joke
Yeah.
among the designers and sculptors. Like, hey, let's do the one shoe thing again.
They'd have one human leg and one animal leg, or a mutant leg and a
Yeah.
peg leg, or something like that.
Mhm.
Are you excited for Mutant Mayhem? Have you seen the toys for Mutant Mayhem coming up?
Yeah, I have. I got a preview of them uh, back, and other than Mikey, which looked a little weird, and especially the earlier um, uh, 3D sculpt of him that I saw looked a little even weirder, but they fixed him a little bit. But yeah, I'm excited for the movie. I mean, I've got a already got a planned get together with some turtle people around town here in Charlotte that we're gonna go all go see it together on like a Saturday night, one night. So I hope it's great. I like, I've liked Seth Rogen stuff for a while, so hopefully he can do it justice. And obviously, for any kind of collecting realm or intellectual property that you enjoy, having something be really successful is great. That means more toys. That means maybe more shows, more movies, more whatever. Just more of the thing you love. So I really hope it just goes really well and it's a big success.
Yeah, me too. And I know you have an engineering background. The books are huge. They're like almost a foot by a foot. They're an inch thick. I think they weigh like 10 pounds a piece. And you've sold thousands of them. And I have to
Yeah.
say, your engineering background, the whole shipping of the books, receiving the book was very orderly. It was handled very professionally. And it was a pleasure to receive the book and everything. It was a great read. So I'd like to recommend everyone go to radplastic.com. Get the Rad Plastic book. It's 20% off right now, Father's Day sale. I highly recommend it. It's got a ton of history in it. It's got a ton of cool pictures, concept designs, all the like clay molds, the original wax, prototypes, hard copies, first shots. It'll be a real educational breakdown on how toys were created. It's historical, it's an art book as well. These toys are beautiful, honestly. A lot of them are really well sculpted. They're like little works
Mhm.
of art. They're like tiny little statues. And he even gets into the marketing and the card backs and the art on that. So it's a great collection of art and Ninja Turtles history. So I highly recommend radplastic.com. And it was a pleasure to talk to you, Chris Fawcett. I really appreciate it. This was really great.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate having me on.
And you were nice, professional. You were on time for our interview, and you even gave a nice little. There's like a sweet little poem in the book. It's very kind. You gave a little shout out to your wife. You seem like a really happy, smart guy, and you're making me feel like a jerk here. So I think I've. It's been enough, but really professional, really well done book, and really great stuff. So I highly recommend the Rad Plastic book. Chris Fawcett, great guy, great Ninja Turtles fan, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. I'll stop the recording and we
Yep.
could say goodbye. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks.